Versus the book.
That was Aaron Rodgers' thing. To your quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
It's a luxury pick. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to win right now. I'm in a window right now, and you're going to say, no, we're going to plan this for the future. With a guy who had 4 years, 4 seasons ended by injury. 4. Like, Michael Penix is a walking injury. Like, what are you doing taking him in the top 10?
The Bostonian versus the book.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on sports.
And welcome in Game Time Decisions. A very happy Wednesday. Welcome to October the 2nd. And that means, well, we got plenty going on in the world of sports. I'm Joe Raineri here on the SportsGrid Network as we are knee-deep into postseason Major League Baseball with already one shocker in the books. Total upset just happened about 30 minutes ago as the Detroit Tigers, for the first time since 2013, have won a postseason series. The Tigers absolutely shocked the Astros and faithful there with a 5-2 win in Game 2 of this wild card series at Minute Maid Park. Andy Ibanez with a 2-out, 2-strike, pinch hit no less, bases clearing double in the top of the 8th inning is ultimately what was the nail in the coffin of what is not only the end of a Houston Astros season, but quite honestly, in all likelihood, the end of a Houston Astros era in which they were purely one of the most dominant teams we have seen over the last decade. Unbelievable. Skubal gets it done last night, and good old A.J. Hinch, who promised chaos from a pitching perspective in this game here, as he basically did exactly what he said. He rolled out 8 different pitchers in this game here. Tyler Holton, Brennan Hanafy, Brant Hurler, Bo Brisky, Jackson Jobe, Seth Gunther, and finally Will Vest. He basically threw out a different pitcher every other inning there, totally keeping the Astros off balance and not knowing what to expect. A.J. Hinch, of course, was part of the Houston Astros organization that you might recall actually won a World Series there, although a lot of, trash cans, a lot of banging and those types of things going on. But now, as the manager of the Detroit Tigers, well, he got exacted a little bit of revenge there in Minute Maid Park by basically throwing everything in the kitchen sink in this game 2 at that Houston lineup. And guess what? It worked. So kudos to the Detroit Tigers for the first time since 2013, advancing now, winning themselves a postseason series. They will take on the Cleveland Guardians, who await them, and good luck trying to figure out what they're going to do in that series. That is going to be interesting. The Yankees might very well be waiting for the Kansas City Royals, who in the top of the 5th inning are up 1-0. The Orioles seem to have forgotten how you win a game in Major League Baseball. See, how it works is you actually have to score more run. Well, actually, at this point, just score a run, and that would be fantastic. Coming off of a 1-0 loss last night, and a great game pitched by the guy that they went out, traded for in the offseason. For that moment last night, to have Corbin Burns on the mound at home at Camden Yards, you were set up in order to be able to have success and finally win a postseason game, which they have not done in what seems like forever. 9 straight postseason losses now by the Baltimore Orioles. They have been a mess. And what did they do last night? Corbin Burns gave him everything he had. He held Kansas City to 1 run, and they couldn't score a run. So they went 9 innings last night without scoring a run. And guess what? We're in the top of the 5th, and they still have not scored a run. It is 1-0. They had to deal with Cole Reagans last night, who pitched outstanding for the Royals, and the bullpen did the rest. And today it is Seth Lugo, the never aging Seth Lugo, who has done nothing this year but set records, personal records for himself in his career in wins and innings pitched and starts. Stayed healthy. This was, in the beginning of the year, one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League Baseball. And he is doing it again here today, as he is basically keeping this lineup of Baltimore off balance. He is not a major strikeout pitcher. He's not an overpowering pitcher. This is a guy that pitches to contact, and the Orioles are just not hitting the ball, which is kind of hard to believe when you think about this team was only second to the Yankees this year when it came to the long ball in Major League Baseball, and yet they can't seem to get anything going here. They're heading now into the bottom of the 5th inning. Only 3 hits on the afternoon here for the Orioles in that one. So 1-0, Royals on top. Again, Yankees are awaiting what is going to happen in this one here. And right now, the Royals are in full control of what's going on there. I did read there were some crazy stats earlier about, since they added the extra wild card teams over the last few years, and 6 seeds and beyond. And boy, oh boy, when you get upsets in the first game of these wild card series by the underdogs have just cleaned house. They have basically ended up not only winning the series, but in a lot of cases end up just sweeping and winning 2-0, which is exactly what Detroit has done. It's exactly what the Royals are threatening to do. And by the way, Hunter Brown pitched a fantastic game today, 9 strikeouts for him on the Astros. I know a lot of guys were on Hunter Brown strikeout props today, and he was well above that. You cashed a ticket, so kudos, but unfortunately the bats let him down. It's exactly what's happening right now with the Royals and Orioles, although the Orioles have Zach Eflin on the mound. He hasn't pitched terrible. One run on 5 hits now, but those bats got to get going. Otherwise, the Royals will do exactly what the Tigers did. As an underdog, they will win this best of 3, 2-0, and advance. Now, does that mean the number 6 seeded Mets are going to go ahead and do the same thing against the Brewers? That game coming up 7:30 Eastern here tonight at the American Family Field in Milwaukee. with the Mets getting off a plane. Who cares? We'll play. We don't make a difference. Get us on a plane. We'll walk there. We're still going to score more runs than you. And that's exactly what the Mets did last night. And they're hoping to do exactly that again tonight. Now, the only team with worse postseason success recently, outside of the Orioles going 9 straight losses now, are the Brewers. The Brewers ratcheted up to 10 straight losses in the postseason now. They can't win a game to save themselves. And the Mets, I mean, look at that number right there, minus 320 for the Mets. And the Milwaukee Brewers were battling down the stretch of the season as having the best record in the National League. And yet here they sit, 1 game away at home from being swept by a 6 seed and saying, bye-bye, it's time to make some tea time and maybe a cruise or two, because the Brewers season is on the verge of being over. The same thing for the Atlanta Braves. The Braves will have Max Fried on the mound here tonight to try to save their season, although judging from what we've seen from this Padres team over the last month and a half, very little will stand in their way from advancing here in the postseason. Fried against Musgrove should be an interesting one. The question is, at Petco, what do we like in this game? Do we like Fried? Do we like this series going 3 games? Do the Brewers have a shot if they win tonight? Boy, these are a lot of questions we got to go over. Mark Zinno is going to step in, give us his best bets here for tonight as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongue, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, oh, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields. He's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those 2 ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase, I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday in the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri, and we do have an update. Apparently, somebody explained to the Baltimore Orioles that in order to actually win games, you have to score runs, and they just did. A Cedric Mullins leadoff here in the bottom of the 5th inning. Solo shot to right field as Seth Lugo hung a giant off-speed pitch right over the middle of the plate and he parked it into the right field stand. So 1-1 here in this one. Nobody out. Gunnar Henderson on, although it does look like Lugo might be rattled here a little bit, as I've seen him walk, and it looks like now we've got a single. So we got the Orioles starting to heat up here a little bit, as it looks like that home run kind of rattled Lugo a bit. But still 1-1, bottom of the fifth. Royals leading that series 1-0. We also, if you're just joining us, told you that the Tigers did something they haven't done since 2013, and that is win a playoff series. They advance after they beat the Astros 5-2. We are looking forward to this game here tonight between the Mets and the Brewers, and then, of course, we've got the Braves and the Padres. Both the Brewers and the Braves are on the verge of being just what Houston did, and that is got swept 2-0 in a short series. It is very unique, these three best-of-3 series, because you find yourself in a spot where variance comes into play in a big way. As we try to avoid variance as sports bettors as best we can in a short series, when you get the best 2 of 3, and a team doesn't hit for whatever reason, or a team you just can't get the pitching going. Strange things happen in these short series, but I'm not saying that the Astros should have won. The Tigers absolutely deserve to win, but a Tigers a month ago were barely a 500 team, and look at that. It's why you gotta love Major League Baseball postseason action, because it gets crazier as we go along. All right, we welcome in our good friend Mark Zinno, if he's ready. I think we can bring him in here at some particular point. We got Zinno's ready to go, and Zin, it really is crazy, right? Like the variance in these best 2 out of 3s with Major League Baseball. It's why the postseason, everyone says, oh, baseball is boring. There's nothing boring about this. And if you're a contrarian bettor, my goodness, here's an opportunity to make a lot of money over the next month with some of these short series, because quite honestly, is any of these games going to 3? Are we getting 3 games out of any of them?
I think the Orioles are going to come back. They just tied it up at 1 in the 5th. They have bases loaded with nobody out, so they're on the verge of taking a lead here. And that's what I said, you and I talked this morning. It was just, look, if the Orioles don't score 4 runs, they're dead. They're dead. Like, they just, this is a team that scored a ton of runs at home all year long. The last month they've slumped, but, you're in a spot right now where it's bases loaded now with 1 out. You don't bust this thing open right here and you leave this a 1-1 game, you may as well pack it in, Baltimore, because I don't like your chances. You got to capitalize. Yep. When you put men in scoring position, you've got to get hits, right? I say it all the time. 2 out base hits win World Series. And that's really what it boils down to in the postseason. You put a guy on second with less than 2 outs, you better get him across somehow. Now, you want to talk about the variance. Explain this to me in game 1 of the Detroit-Houston series. I mean, honestly, like Framber Valdez, they were 18-9 with him on the mound at home. He had a sub-2 ERA at home. He almost didn't lose a game. He was 9-2 at home this year. The Detroit Tigers came in on the road against lefties, second to last in batting average at .218, third to last in OPS at .613, and third to last in WRC plus. They also, on the road against lefties, had the 4th highest strikeout rate. And what did they do? They went and scored 3 runs off Framber Valdez, and that was enough with Skubal on the mound. So often, what you have to remember is that you rarely get big on big, best on best during the regular season, right? You don't get, Tariq Skubal versus Framber Valdez when the Tigers and Astros meet in the regular season series. You get Tariq Skubal against some hump who's the 5th starter in the rotation who's going to be shipped on a bus back to AAA after that. You get Framber Valdez against the 4th starter, on the Cleveland Guardians, and it's a different matchup. So when you put big on big, you really have to look at first, which pitcher do I trust more? And in this case, I picked the wrong one because I thought Houston was going to win yesterday. But nonetheless, it's hard not to trust Tariq Skubal after the Cy Young campaign he's put together.
Yeah, well, and that's what makes the next series extremely interesting if it is the Guardians here in a best of 5, because, you're going to have Skubal in game 1, you're going to have him in game 5, it goes there. So that's why setting up the rotations is so important in Major League Baseball in this style of postseason play, where you look at the next two games coming up here, then start with the Mets. I mean, the Mets had to play Atlanta, had to get on a plane. They left Milwaukee to go play Atlanta, only to come back to Milwaukee. Didn't make a difference last night, and Severino wasn't exactly lights out. But then again, neither was Peralta. So back against the wall, do we trust Milwaukee to make this thing a series tonight?
I think there are going to be runs scored. I mean, look, I get a 7.5 when you had Freddie Peralta on the mound yesterday. You know, I got that number a little bit. I don't get that number with Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea at all. You know, again, if Montas was bad with the Reds, he's been even worse with the Brewers. The numbers aren't good. The Mets hit a ton on the road. The Brewers hit lefties very well at home on the season. And despite Sean Manea's resemblance of a human Cabbage Patch doll, three of his last 5 outings have been pretty bad. And the 2 ones that were good were against really bad hitting teams in Toronto and Washington. So I don't have a ton of faith. And again, both these starters, by the way, faced each other 5 days ago in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
In an 8-4 Brewers win. So I would expect that runs will be scored again.
Are you shocked they went Montas in this spot here, or do you think it's the right call for them?
I mean, unless they were setting up something to have, you know, Tobias Myers, who may be their third best pitcher, or at least their third most consistent pitcher, be the starter for game 1 of the division series. You know, I'm not really sure what they were necessarily thinking. Because when you look at, you know, the Brewers and the way they're sort of constructed here, after you get through Peralta, it's like, you know, do you really want Savale on the mound or something like that? No.
All right, hold on to that, Zeno. Hold on to that thought. I want to get your thought also coming on in the Braves and Padres. We'll do it next here on the Grid.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongue, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields, he's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put him with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase, I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, here we go. Game time decisions, and we are back. Major League postseason underway. One upset in the books, and quite honestly, I think there's going to be a second one here as the Baltimore Orioles stranded not one, not two, but 3 runners on base in the bottom of the 5th inning. They only got 1 run across. It is 1-1. And Zeno, I think you called it, did you not? You said if you can't open this game up here and you keep the Royals hanging around, we got ourselves another upset coming, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, that was the best opportunity they had. They got Lugo out of there, who's been excellent. He's one of the best pitchers on the road this year. He's got one of the lowest ERAs of anybody on the road. They put him up against the ropes. They had him there, and they couldn't body him and finish him off. And it just, it really is disappointing for the Orioles if they wanted to win this series for that to happen, because after they let off the inning with a home run, then you get a single and a walk, right? Then you get an error, and you had bases loaded, by the way, with nobody out. You popped out, you struck out, and you grounded out, and that right there may be the Orioles' season. With, oh, by the way, Santander, Kowser, and Rutschman, the middle heart of their lineup, did not get a single base hit or even a sac fly in there to take the lead. I hate this spot for the Orioles right now.
Yeah, no, it's not good. It's also not good for Atlanta. Your Braves, man. You're stationed in Atlanta. It was an impossible spot last night. Then we find out the plane didn't land till like 2, 3 in the morning the night before. They struck out 15 times. No wonder why. But they do have the right guy that they have right on the mound. You need Max Fried to be Max Fried and to level this thing up. Do you think it happens here tonight?
I don't know if it's a question of Max Fried pitches well. It's a question of, can the Orioles hit Joe Musgrove? I mean, the Braves hit Joe Musgrove, rather. Like, that's it. The Braves' problem all season long hasn't been the pitching. It's always been the hitting. And all you got to do is get to Fried for 2 or 3, and that may be enough. Because I don't know that the Braves have enough bats in this lineup that are going to be able to do anything. I mean, it's just the reality of it. I mean, forget for a minute, the lineup that you have from like 5 on, Soler, Laureano, Dorneau, Urshela, or Cia, like, these guys are all barely hitting their weight for the entire, even Olsen. Matt Olson's been bad all year long. So once you get past the top 3 in Harris, Albies, and Ozuna, 6 through 9 are outs. You have to get lucky. And so if Musgrove doesn't make a mistake and leave a ball in the middle of the plate where anybody can hit it out, they should be fine. I mean, again, they might not score early, but when push comes to shove here, I don't think the Padres are losing this game. And the pricing on this game, Joe, by the way, is nuts because they closed it
really is.
Last night, and now they're basically like $1.15. It's on like 15 cents. Like, what are we doing here? Like, that is a wide varying price range, especially given the propensity for 2-game sweeps that we've seen in the wild card round. The fact that they came that low is probably, in my opinion, showing a little bit too much respect to Max Fried and the Braves bats.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, we talked about it earlier. The stats of these, especially in these short 3-game series, the underdogs winning game 1 almost always win game 2 and or 3. Sometimes it usually doesn't even get to a game 3 that, they're handling their business. I mean, if you're Milwaukee, you've lost 10 straight postseason games. The Orioles have lost 9 straight, and it doesn't look like any of this is going to change right now. So, is there any one of these games we had hoped the Orioles at this point would have been up big, but they're not? So is all of these games a clear sweep with really the only favorite being the San Diego Padres advancing?
Well, considering I have a future on the Padres, I want to say yes. I have 2 futures on them in the NL and the World Series. So, I would love for them to do that. And I think their path is great. And I would love for the Mets to go beat up on the Phillies. So if the Padres do get past the Dodgers, which I think they can do, those 2 Mets and Phillies beating up on each other will certainly, I think, clear the path for them. All that aside, look, I mean, I still want to believe in the Orioles. But, at some point, Joe, when you're in this game like here, if you are Brandon Hyde, the manager of the Orioles, I get you got the fat part of the order coming up. But, what is so wrong with putting a bunt down just to get a run home? Like, just to create it's sometimes the managers don't manage and they sit back and they go, well, these guys are going to get a hit because they've done it all season. This is not the same thing as the regular season. You've got to manage your way out of some of these spots.
Yep. And listen, they went and traded for Corbin Burns for that spot last night to give him exactly what he gave them. And you didn't get enough done. It's absolutely mind-blowing, but that's why we love postseason Major League Baseball. Mark Zinno, always a pleasure, my man. Let's cash those tickets on these games coming up. We're going to talk a little football. CT Bets.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's three quarterbacks above him. Everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongue. But it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields. He's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week, I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase. I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions on this Wednesday. Can you believe it? The first Wednesday of October. That means, we're right smack in the middle of it. College football, NFL, and I can't think of two guys better to start laying it down here in this week 6 of the college football season than our man CT Betts back in the saddle again, along with the legendary KW, Kenny White, in the house. Gentlemen, welcome in. It's getting weirder and weirder in college football. We'll do the NFL coming up here, but here we are, week 6, still trying to figure out who the best team in college football is. And boy, oh boy, the way Alabama showed up last week, some people believe it is theirs now, but we all know it is a long way away from crowning anybody just yet. But in the meantime, we got a couple of games coming up this week that we want to dive into. And CT, I'm going to start with you because you come on this show every year before the season starts, and you're just blowing smoke towards Iowa. Bet Iowa's team, win total over. Get me Iowa over. Well, let me ask you, Iowa taking on Ohio State this week. Is it another win towards that over season win total, or, oh boy, we got issues?
I think Iowa's in for a lot of issues this weekend, Joe. And you look at the Buckeyes schedule, right? And they haven't played anyone yet. And you could probably say they've pretty much been sleepwalking this year so far. And you guys both know I'm pretty well in tune with the Iowa program. A good buddy of mine went there. He's close with a bunch of the assistant coaches. And this just isn't really an ideal matchup for them. This is the best defense I can remember seeing from the Buckeyes in a really long time. And I think we're going to see that Saturday. I expect them to get up for this game, shut the Iowa running game down. And if McNamara wants to throw the ball, good luck to him, Joe, because the Buckeyes have probably the best secondary in college football. I think good old Chip, he's kind of been holding some plays back, some stuff back. I think he lets loose a little bit this weekend. This isn't a look-ahead game, in my opinion, for the Buckeyes. It's a statement game towards the Ducks to let them know they're coming into Eugene next week hungry. They're going to take care of business. Remember what Penn State did to Iowa last year. I expect something very similar. 31-7 Buckeyes. We'll lay the 19.5 here.
Woo, you ain't messing around here. All right, Ohio State to take it to Iowa. Now, Kenny, I would expect nothing less for you to pick this hot game of the week as Sam Houston taking on the newest member, Kenny, of, I believe, the Mountain West, as the announcement is coming down. UTEP joining the Mountain West here. So do they kick this off 9 o'clock tomorrow night with a win, or what are we expecting in this one?
Yeah, hello, UTEP. Welcome to the Mountain West. And Scotty Waldron's a really good coach. This guy can coach. Obviously, the roster's not great at UTEP. It's going to take him some time to build, but I have seen improvement out of this club each and every game. They played at Nebraska. They lose 40-7. They played at Liberty, another really good team. They lost 28-20. They did cover there. They played at Colorado State, not the greatest of teams, but not a poorly coached team. Just missed covering in that game, but their power rating in each game that I give them, performance rating, has gotten better each and every game. Now, this is obviously in-state kind of rivalry game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. Both teams play very methodical. Sam Houston loves to run the football. Texas El Paso is a very conservative team. They have gone under all 4 of their games this year. The other side, Sam Houston, 3-1 to the under. So, yeah, give me the points with UTEP in this home game against Sam Houston. I love the 10.5. It opened 12 at Circa, was bet down. I think it closes 8.5 or 9.
So all right. So we're going, 10.5 is what we're seeing there in that game there. And I got to ask you, CT, because I know last week it was a divide, man, between Alabama and Georgia. And you are steadfast on Bama getting it done against Georgia. And boy, oh boy, did they ever. They held off, got it done. A lot of people worried about Bama this week against Vandy. Let down? No let down? What, I mean, or are you thinking Bama's, they're just going to keep rolling here at this point?
I don't know. I mean, man, Jalen Milroe looked really good, and so did the 17-year-old freshman. I mean, it's tough to get in front of that team, Joe. But after that big win there, I mean, that's a game probably I'm not looking to lay that many against Vandy there. That's probably a game that I want absolutely nothing to do with after that unbelievable first half out of Bama and scary second half there for a while. And man, I give Kalen DeBoer all the credit in the world because he did not back down. He just absolutely airs it out to Williams there with 2 minutes and 17 seconds left. And the place is going nuts. And everybody looked like they were about to cry in the stands. And then, man, DeBoer looks real comfortable coaching that team, Joe.
Yeah, he does. But conversely, Georgia laying whatever against Auburn, probably not a problem laying those points, CT, I'm guessing, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a bounce back spot there for Georgia. But, I mean, I can't really get a read on Auburn. Man, it's unbelievable that they lose that game. How are you throwing that ball there in the fourth quarter on that pick six? It really doesn't make any sense. Hugh Freeze, he can't do himself any favors whatsoever.
Nope.
I mean, it's Georgia or pass for me. I can't even take that many with Auburn there in that game, Joe.
Yeah, it's head scratching what's going on with Hugh Freeze there at Auburn and how many more coaches that are going to burn through. Kenny, take me to the service academies because everybody and their mother loves Navy. Who knew? Every big Navy fans everywhere taking on Air Force this week. So do they continue to roll in this one?
Well, Joe, I got a question. Was that a play for CT? Is he on Georgia?
Only Georgia. Only Georgia.
It would be Georgia pass for me, Kenny. Yeah.
So CT's first 2 plays, he's got Ohio State minus 19.5, and Georgia minus 43.5 in his 2 plays. All the favorites that I bet this year, and I bet 75 of them, don't even add up to 43.5 points. What in the world's going on here?
Lay it.
Come on,
lay it, baby. Well, you got to be laying double digits here, no? Are you laying double digits with Navy?
I'm not on Navy. You kidding me? On a rivalry service academy game, and the score is going to be 16-13 or something crazy.
No.
These 2 teams know each other inside and out. These games have been dead unders for 20 years now because they all run the same offense. They know how to stop each other. This game's going to be 6-3 at halftime, and it's going to end up 16-13, something like that. So I'm taking the points with Air Force. They're off to an 0-4 start, but this may be the game that they're going to finally get up. I got to still back Troy Calhoun. The guy has been to 17 bowl games or 13 bowl games with Air Force. We know they're always good. This is the worst team he's had in a long time, but nothing matters but this game, and they will slow Navy down because they know exactly what Navy wants to do, and Navy knows what Air Force wants to do. Very low scoring. I can't go into the total, but with that low of a scoring game, points are at a premium. You're going to give me 10 in a rivalry at home? Yeah, I'm taking it every time.
So it's a kind of like a sell high spot on Navy, because I never thought I'd see this kind of line in this game. Kenny, no?
Yeah, well, it's a buy low. Navy's 4-0, Air Force is 0-4. Throw the records out. When you play one of these type of games, the records don't mean anything, because Air Force will fight till the end to win this football game, and I think they're going to be close late in the game, and they'll give themselves a chance to win this at home. So, yeah, throw the records out. Forget about it. All you got to know is they hate each other. They're going to play extremely hard, Air Force will, and they're at home.
Yep. First time 4-0 for a long time there for Navy. Should be a good one. I will go on record here. We're going to talk NFL coming up and our best bets here as we head into week 5 of the NFL season. But CT, I'm just going to go on record and say, are we passing on Baylor and Oklahoma State this week, you and I? Just asking.
Yes, complete pass. Complete pass. Nothing
Great.
to do with those teams.
I am with you 100%. Game Time Decisions returns.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongue, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields. He's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you could pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase. I'd rather have Barkley. And then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Kenny White hanging with us, as is our man CT Betts. And one more college game we got to get in on a Friday night here, because it was the story last week, CT. UNLV, quarterback leaves, no problem. They still put the beat down. Now they're taking on Syracuse, and boy, the Syracuse fan base just in total denial that they could be getting almost a touchdown in this game. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I've been beating the market all year in college, and for the most part, it really hasn't paid off. And hand up, I had the info last week. Had a ticket with Fresno plus 4.5 in pocket. The Campbell transfer, Malik Williams, he was excellent. And on Sunday, I misread the market here Sunday, taking a bad number with Cuse plus 3.5. It's up to 6.5 now. I took more 7 when it got there for a hot second. I think it's a bit of an overreaction to the Rebels kind of blasting a banged up Mike Keene and a Fresno team that just isn't that good. And I downgraded Fresno. Now UNLV, perfect 4-0, first time ever in the AP top 25 ranking. Everyone in the desert is going wild over this team. I think Cuse is more than able to keep give the Rebels more than they could handle and more. And I'm high on Kyle McCord, higher on Kyle McCord than most. I think he's been a perfect fit in upstate New York, and he's comfortable under center there. So we're going to grab the points here. I expect Cuse in a wire-to-wire cover here.
Seems like a big number. That game coming up Friday night there. Syracuse taking on UNLV. Coming up tomorrow night, we got a little NFL action. And Kenny, you were big on Atlanta last week. I think we all were. Boy, they did a great job of winning a game without scoring an offensive touchdown here. Now they welcome Tampa to town here on a Thursday night game. Do we just bet unders on these Thursday night games? Is that the safe route to go here with these games, teams like this?
I guess, Joe, every year it's cyclical that, they go that way. I can remember 10, 12 years ago when I was shooting line makers, Rich Baccelleri said, just play every standalone over, every Thursday night, every Sunday night, every Monday. They all go over. They went over for 2 straight years, 3 straight years. Right now we're on a trend of a couple years in a row now under. I'm not in that game at all. I'm not playing that one. I've got Cleveland this weekend. Kind of similar. I think CT's on the right track with Syracuse because UNLV has never been in the AP top 25. Teams that get in the top 25 at one point during the season that weren't there all year have a huge letdown. This team banded together. We'll show you, Sluka. We can win without you. And Williams is just as good. I had 0 drop-off from Sluka to Williams. So I did take the 4.5 like CT, but I laid back 1 with Fresno trying to middle that game. But I think this is a huge letdown spot. They know they're a favorite, too. They've never been a favorite.
Yep.
Syracuse is going to come in hungry off a loss. So Cleveland, Washington, if you made this number before the season started, I'm sure there were numbers up, obviously. I got to bet Cleveland was the favorite. Washington has played 2 great games in a row, and last week was Cliff Kingsbury's return to Arizona. Those Commanders said, Coach, we got your back. We got your back. We're going to beat these guys. And Arizona's not very good anyway. Cleveland off to a 1-3 start. They lost to the Giants by 6, and they lost to Vegas by 4. 2 games, they were within 1 score of winning. We could be talking about a 3-1 Cleveland team. We're not. Since they lost 2 in a row, they're going to be fired up and flying around for this game. I think they're the better football team, and we're getting 3 points here. So we'll see if Jaden Daniels can do it 3 weeks in a row as a rookie. I highly doubt it. This is more of a situational play for me. Give me the Brownies.
Do you sense any skepticism in his tone there, CT, on Jaden Daniels being able to continue to light everybody up like he has been doing? I might have sensed a little skepticism, but, the same thing could be said for Justin Fields and Pittsburgh as we got a Sunday night game here. Well, this is an interesting spot. Dallas against Pittsburgh, right? Old school. How much are you a believer in these 2 teams, and who are you looking at in this one?
Yeah, this is actually my best bet in the NFL this weekend, and it's Sunday Night Football. And yeah, the Cowboys, they're rushing D. They held up against the G-Men last week, but outside of that, it's been pretty easy to run on the boys' defensive line this year. And I think between Fields, Harris, Patterson, I think the Steelers could take advantage of that. And the wideout Brandon Cooks, he was ruled out today with a knee injury for the boys, and the boys' defense, which has already been all sorts of out of sync. They're going to be without the star edge rusher Micah Parsons, defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, 2 huge pieces for this unit here. Steel Curtain, obviously one of the best defensive units in the league, and TJ Watt just continues to be an absolute problem for quarterbacks and offensive lines. The boys, I think, are going to be a square pup under the lights Sunday night Tomlin's going to have a good game plan here. Look for the Steel to grind out a win and a cover Sunday Night Football.
Oh, you like him to get it back on track at home. He's always, Tomlin. Interesting spot here. Love that. I hate Dallas with all my might, but they're probably going to get Devontae Adams, right? Kenny White, because that's basically what Jerry does. Anything to take the focus off of how bad they suck here. Give me another game you're looking at here this week, Kenny. What else you got for us in the NFL?
Hey, right back to the game CT was talking about. I bet this one under the total, Dallas and Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin has been a great under coach no matter where, home or away. 63-36 this year, 3-1 to the under. They've got a great defense. They don't let you move the football, and they are very conservative on offense. Love to hear what CT said about what he thinks they're going to do, and he's 100% right. They are going to run the football. They're going to be methodical, and they're going to take their time. Mike McCarthy, 23-13 under on the road as the Cowboys head coach. They struggle. They play more methodical themselves on the road. So, yeah, under in Dallas and Pittsburgh on Sunday night.
All right, we got Pittsburgh. We got an under there. All right, CT, quickly here, Monday night. Are you believing Kansas City can just weather all these and continue to win games in blowout fashion?
I got to think it's got to catch up to them at some point. It's just unbelievable. They get every single call. Every favor from the refs. I don't know. I mean, the injury with Rice, that's a big piece of that offense. I lean the Saints, Kenny, and then I know some sharp action came in on KC today, so I don't know what to do with that right now.
Fade them, Kenny White, CT Bets, brother. Good luck. We'll talk to you again next week here on the Grid.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's three quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongues, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields, he's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week, I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase, I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network here as we take a look on the postseason baseball side of things right now. Kansas City tacks on a run to take a 2-1 lead over the Baltimore Orioles, and we already had one sweep earlier today with the Tigers as an underdog, getting it done 5-2, bouncing the Astros from the postseason. Tigers advance. Royals trying to do exactly the same thing here as the Orioles, just outside of a Cedric Mullins fifth inning solo shot. They can't score. They can't. They left the bases loaded in the fifth inning. They scored no runs in the game last night. They lost 1-0. Now they find themselves down a run here, top of the seventh, as the Royals taking on the Orioles. We got Mets Brewers coming up next hour here in about 35 minutes or so. Brewers on the verge of losing an 11th straight postseason. It's just kind of hard to believe when you think about it. The Orioles are on a 9-game postseason losing streak, and the Brewers have one up better than that as a 10-game losing streak in the postseason. Can the Brewers get it done here? Frankie Montas taking on Sean Manaea. That should be a good one. In fact, they just pitched against one another less than a week ago when the Mets in their final series of the regular season were taking on Milwaukee. We'll see if the second time is a charm, but it looks like Manaea, to me, is a guy all year long the Mets have been able to rely upon. And boy, oh boy, it would be huge to see the Mets go 2-0, sweep them, and advance. And the same thing late night with the Padres getting ready to handle their business against the Braves. The Braves sending Max Fried out there, Joe Musgrove going for the Padres as they try to get the 2-0 sweep and advance. So a lot still to be determined here in these wild card games. But the one thing we know for sure, Detroit, for the first time since 2013, is advancing in the postseason. Kind of hard to believe, but that's exactly what we've got. We also have some WNBA playoffs taking center stage this week. And boy, oh boy, it looks like the Liberty up 2-0 on the Aces. Could they? Would they? Can they advance? Try to get themselves a world championship. Well, 88-84, they handled business in game 2 of that series, up 2-0. They got one more to go, but as you can see, the Liberty clear favorite right now to win it all. However, I know a lot of people like the Minnesota Lynx at this price for a title odd at almost 4 to 1, right? Plus 415 there. The Minnesota Lynx knotted that series up against the Connecticut Sun. They play on Friday in Connecticut there. The Lynx trying to get it done while the Liberty trying to advance. Could it be Liberty Lynx is what we're going to get as a ultimate final? And boy, that would be good. But the Connecticut Sun are not going to go quietly. That one will be at the Mohegan Sun Arena, 7:30 p.m. on Friday. And then, of course, at 9:30 after that one, get ready for the Liberty and Aces. I got to believe the Aces, two-time world champions here back-to-back, are not somehow going to go out without a fight. It may not be enough, but it should be one heck of a game coming up there on Friday night. So we still got a champion to crown in the WNBA. We are just off and running in Major League Baseball, on our way over the next month to crown a world champion. Who can it be? Can the Orioles come back? It's something we're going to keep an eye on as they now finally head to the bottom of the 7th inning here. You got to score runs in the postseason, and the Orioles just are having a hard time doing that. We've got one run now in the last 16 innings of postseason baseball for the Orioles. They got shut out last night, and it ain't going well here tonight with just a solo home run to their name. So much still to come here in Major League Baseball as the postseason. There's nothing quite like it. And in the meantime, you've got the Yankees and the Guardians waiting patiently. And, of course, you've got the Dodgers and the Phillies also hanging out, waiting patiently to see who are they going to have to play in their quest for a World Series. Will Kansas City have a date in the Bronx in a couple of days? Or did the Orioles extend this and give us a Game 3? Come back. We'll cover it all next hour as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's three quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongues, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, oh, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields, he's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week, I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase, I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back. Another hour here of Game Time Decisions on this Wednesday now, October the 2nd. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we have plenty to get ready for here this week. Week 5 of the NFL season kicks off tomorrow in Atlanta as a big battle between division rivals. They have the Tampa Bay Bucks heading to Atlanta to take on Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. Will they or won't they score an offensive touchdown tomorrow night? Who knows? They didn't need to score one against the Saints because they still managed to win that game thanks to a blocked punt recovered in the end zone and, of course, a pick 6 against Derek Carr. Tampa coming in after rolling the Philadelphia Eagles on what was about 100-degree hot, humid day on Sunday in Tampa Bay. It won't nearly be that hot inside the Mercedes-Benz Dome there in Atlanta, but a very important game for both these teams in what is, quite honestly, a very winnable division. That will kick off week number 5 in the NFL season. And then, of course, we've got week 6 in the college football season, and we've got plenty of games kicking off. A couple of games tomorrow night, in fact, is Texas State taking on Troy, a little Sunbelt action there. And then, of course, Sam Houston and UTEP will go at it tomorrow night. UTEP, the newest member of the Mountain West, as that was just announced earlier today. And we had Kenny White on last hour, legendary handicapper. He had some thoughts on this game as well. So plenty going on here in week 6 of college football. Great slate on Friday night with Syracuse and UNLV, as well as Michigan State and Oregon. And then, of course, we head into what is going to be a huge weekend for top 25 teams. And one of the games I'm going to be very interested in seeing is the University of Miami, who's going to be heading way west. We're talking 2,400 miles west of the U as they head to Berkeley to take on Cal and laying double digits. This is usually a spot. First of all, it's the first true road game for Miami, and they are coming off a game in which a lot of people believe was robbed of a win by Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech in that Hail Mary touchdown that was called a touchdown, but went to the review, and then they said no touchdown, but didn't have any clear evidence. Yeah, that play there, Miami did not look good in that game. Cam Ward, who was the front runner for the Heisman, a lot of interceptions, a lot of terrible plays in that game at home. Both of his interceptions, by the way, led to touchdowns, is what really kept Virginia Tech in that game. So can Miami clean that up and travel to Berkeley to take on a Cal team coming off a bye? And Justin Wilcox, their head coach, a hugely profitable coach as a double-digit underdog, especially at home. They will be ready, Cal. The question is, was that just an anomaly from Cam Ward at the University of Miami, or are we going to expect more of that? They still put up over 500 yards of offense. Can the Cal Bears defense handle business? The U in the top 10 right now, I think coming in at number 8. Another win here, and I can't believe, what is this, ACC After Dark, 10:30 on Saturday night. That's what's going to end our Week 6 in college football. So a lot going on across the board this weekend, not to mention postseason baseball. And we already have congratulated the Detroit Tigers in them sweeping the Houston Astros and ending what is one of the greatest eras of baseball for any one franchise, as the Houston Astros not only lost earlier today 5-2, it ended their season, and quite honestly, I think it ended an era for that Houston Astros dominance, as Bregman, one of the stars that has been there over the last decade, is a free agent. Now he's a free agent. There is no anticipation that they are going to re-sign him. So Bregman, longtime Houston Astros, will no longer be there. Altuve getting up there in years as well. Nobody knows how much longer we can expect that. And of course, we know that Verlander, who went back to Houston there, hoping for one more shot at a postseason play, he didn't even make the roster, as it would seem. And then, of course, Tucker, who has been one of the more dominant hitters over the last couple of seasons for Houston, another MIA, 0 for 7 in 2 games. It was not good for the Houston Astros. They are going to be rebuilding any which way you cut it here, but the Tigers are that team. That's the up-and-coming team here. A 5-2 win. Well, the Guardians await. And the Guardians are going to have their hands full with the Detroit Tigers. Could they be what the Arizona Diamondbacks were a year ago? A team that nobody gave any thought to until, of course, before you knew it, they were in the World Series, winning the National League pennant and trying to win a world championship. In the meantime, the Kansas City Royals are telling the Tigers, hold my beer, not so fast. You're not the only underdog worth taking a stab at, as they are now on top of the Orioles 2-1 as they head to the top of the 8th inning. The Orioles have managed just one run on a standalone solo home run to lead off the bottom of the 5th inning by Cedric Mullins, and that's it. They got 5 hits, stranded the bases loaded in that 5th inning, and could not scratch another run across. And meantime, the Royals keep plodding along. Seth Lugo has been absolutely outstanding for them. Reagan's last night was outstanding for them. And should we be sleeping on the Kansas City Royals? Because if they win this tonight, it's the Yankees they're going to have to go through, and they're going to be a monster underdog against the New York Yankees. And let's face it, outside of Tariq Skubal, who and how is Detroit going to be anywhere even close to a favorite against the Guardians? The bullpen is in now for Kansas City. So can they and will they hold on to this opportunity here to be able to get it done? They did it last night. They shut them out. Can we get a couple of more shutout innings for the Kansas City bullpen? And if we do, the Orioles will have lost 10 straight postseason games dating back to last year. It has not been good here, folks, for the Baltimore Orioles. The body language also tells us it's not good. They have already rattled through 7, it looks like, pitchers, 6 or 7 pitchers in this game. It was started off by Zach Eflin, only went 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, only walked 1, struck out 2. He certainly kept him in this game, but so did Seth Lugo, only getting 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, struck out 6. So those that might have had the Lugo over on his strikeout prop, I believe, was either 4.5 or 5.5. I believe that is a winning ticket. In the meantime, coming up bottom of this hour, the Mets are going to try and do another number 6 seed, going to go ahead and try and do exactly what Arizona did a year ago, and that was run the table right into an opportunity to win a world championship. And I think it might be time that we start looking at those exact World Series props where the Mets will take on the New York Yankees, and literally half the country will not care outside of the Northeast. But that could very well be taking center stage. But the Padres might have something to say about that as they look to sweep their series against the hobbled Atlanta Braves, who got dominated by Michael King last night. They turn to Joe Musgrove tonight to close this thing out and get them to advance and get ready to eventually have to take on the Dodgers at some point here. So Phillies and Dodgers waiting to see what's up. The Yankees waiting to see if it's the Royals or the Orioles, and so are we. But we'll have much more on it as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongue, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields. He's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week, I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase. I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, keeping an eye on the postseason opportunities here in Major League Baseball, and still much to be decided. The one thing that we know is that we got one underdog already moving on, the Detroit Tigers. We're about to have 2, unless the Orioles can figure it out. Happy Wednesday here. We welcome in our good friend Adam Kaufman. And Adam, you and I were just laughing here going, did somebody forget to tell the Orioles how you actually win baseball games? And to put, you have to score runs, you have to score more runs than the other team. And They're down 2-1 here, and they're not even showing, they don't even look remotely close to the team that we saw all season, who I think was second behind the Yankees in home runs. They look like they've become a home run or nothing team, which is never good in a short series like this.
Yeah, man, listen, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I really don't. Patrick reached out earlier. He said, hey, you want to go on? You want to talk to Raineri on GameTime Decisions? Of course I want to talk to Raineri. I'll talk to Raineri whenever I can. But honestly, fade me right now. That is what I am telling the viewers and listeners, because I was on Houston earlier as part of a builder, because obviously they were heavily juiced favorites. Had them in a builder, didn't play it straight. That lost because, as we know, the Astros went dead, which honestly, for the sport of baseball, probably a good thing. I mean, the Tigers are a remarkable story, just massive dogs, and they keep getting it done from their days of being under 500 to this, like it turned back the clock, Phillies, Nationals like run, the Cinderella story that they are part of right now. I hope they just keep going. I really do. And as far as this game right now, you mentioned the Orioles. Well, guess what? I'm on Baltimore. And this team that was, the Astros, they were down. They came back. They led before they didn't. The Royals here led to this game, and then the Orioles, they come back and they tie it with that Mullins homer. But in that very same inning, had the bases loaded with nobody out, goose egg, nobody out, and they can't muster a single solitary freaking run. Like you said, one run on a solo homer they have scored this entire postseason. It's ridiculous right now. As far as the two games that are still to come tonight, I know we're going to talk about them. I'll just get ahead of it. I'll tell you, I'm on the Mets. I'm on the Padres. Those are the two spots that I really like. Now, partially because I believe they're the better spots, but also because I would like us to have a world where we don't have baseball again until Saturday, so we don't have to bet this stupid sport. It is unbelievable the amount of variance that we are getting all throughout the year, but especially here in these playoffs. It's aggravating as all hell. But I was on the over for Lugo strikeouts, which actually was only at 3.5. I couldn't believe it. So yeah,
Really?
I did invest in that. Yeah, crazy.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that low. It's interesting, but you bring up a very good point. We talked about this last hour with Mark Zinno. It's when you look back at the trend here over, let's say, the last 3 to 5 years here in Major League Baseball, man, as bettors, we try to avoid variance as best we can. But in a short best of 3 wild card series, it's good luck. You're better off just betting dogs straight up, because anything can happen. Everything that you think should and could based upon 162 games, throw it out the window, because these short series, the variance to me, Adam, is over the top. It really is, unlike anything else.
Tigers, dogs. Royals, dogs. If the Mets actually do win, dogs. Heaven forbid you want to go near the Braves tonight, but dogs. It's true. I mean, for the most part, in the wild card round, and this goes back, a few years, just looking at this new format that we're in, generally speaking, the dogs are the profitable ones. And it's not just because of obviously the plus money, it's because they are knocking off the favorites more often than not. It's a ridiculous trend that has been happening in baseball for anyone that has been paying attention. And we're already seeing it here early in 2024.
Yeah, and looking at the Mets here, another 6 seed trying to follow in the Arizona footsteps, which is interesting here. It's amazing because you had the Mets, who were just in Milwaukee, had to leave Milwaukee to come to play Atlanta, a doubleheader, win that, to get on a plane and go back to Milwaukee last night, and then they beat up on Peralta. And now I think it's interesting that they decided to go with Montas instead of Savali in this one here. But we just saw this matchup within a week, did we not, here with Manea and Montas? Right. So does anything change here? What do you think?
Well, I think if you can't beat them, join them. I was on the Brewers yesterday, man, thinking that there was going to be a major disadvantage for the Mets having playing one emotional, but 2 games the day before, having to get themselves into the playoffs, the little, albeit probably tepid celebration, all the travel, and sure enough, in a thriller, in a wild one, people going nuts looking at probability charts as that game went along. It was up, down, up, down, up, down, like the wild roller coaster ride that it was. But the Mets, sure enough, find a way. And it's just not to bring it back to the Tigers, but this Mets team is sort of the same. Like, how do you bet against them right now? So like I said, if you can't beat them, join them. It's just what they are doing. They are maybe not steamrolling teams, obviously. There have been a lot of really sort of blood pumping games, but they are finding a way as games go on. And then you drill down, you look at this matchup right here. Like you mentioned, Sean Manaea against Frankie Montas. Manaea has been a wins machine. I was looking at it earlier. Mets have won 11 out of his last 13 starts, dating back a couple of months. 8 out of his last 9, I think, as a matter of fact. He's been mostly great since the middle of June. Montas, on the other side, he has allowed 13 runs in as many innings his last few starts. The Brewers bullpen, super thin, obviously, so heaven forbid they have to lean on him. That could be problematic. You know, if he does run into trouble, as we have seen against, as you said, this Mets team before, is just going to give New York that much more confidence. And I just again, I don't know how you go against the Mets right now. Would it shock me if the Brewers go out and win this game? Of course not. They're playing for their season. Weird things happen. But if you're looking for the right side, I think, surprisingly enough, it's the dog.
Yep. It's amazing, too, that the Mets also in that game yesterday were given the opportunity to kind of reset their bullpen. And now, in the meantime, Milwaukee's strength, their bullpen, they go out. They got crushed. They were terrible in that game yesterday. So it's amazing the opportunity and the opening of the door, and the Mets have just walked through it here since the summertime. We'll have more on the Padres in Atlanta when Game Time Decisions continues.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongue, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, oh, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields, he's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week, I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase, I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. 6 outs away, the Kansas City Royals from advancing to take on the New York Yankees as the Orioles are down to their final 6 outs, down 2-1 in this game with the Royals already up 1-0. We'll keep you posted on this as Adam Kaufman hanging with us here on Game Time Decisions. Now, Adam, this Milwaukee and Mets game coming up here in just a couple of minutes. You got a prop that you like in this game as well. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I like both pitcher K overs. I think that there's a good chance that we see both of these guys for an extended period of time, at least obviously if they're even remotely locked in. You know, obviously if a guy runs into trouble, managers are going to have a quick leash. I fully understand that. But I think whereas last year, and a lot of the time in this day and age in the postseason, sort of unders are the name of the game, whether it's innings pitched, outs, you know, obviously because people don't bet on innings pitched, but number of outs or even, you know, walks unders, strikeout unders. Like I get it. I mean, that was a very profitable trend in last year's postseason in particular. This year, early on, we're very early, only a couple days in. I feel like we're seeing a lot of starters go a little bit longer than people might have anticipated, and that's obviously leading to some overs with K props. And with these two guys, I look at Sean Manaea, who we were talking about off air. I know he got roughed up by the Brewers when he saw them in his last start of the regular season only not even a week ago, and didn't make it out of the fourth inning in that one. That being said, before that, his line right now is 5.5, over 5.5 Ks. He had 6+ strikeouts in 6 of his previous 7 starts. I think it's a fair line. It's an efficient line. But again, if I believe in the Mets, as I do, and I think he's going to be out there for a fair amount of time, I'm going to go over on the strikeouts. It's not like Milwaukee doesn't strike out. So I happen to like this a great deal for Manaea. On the other side, Montas, maybe I don't trust quite as much, and you could see a little bit more desperation, less patience on the side of the Brewers, given that, again, they're facing elimination. But Montas, a little bit lower, over 4.5 Ks. He went for 6 strikeouts against the Mets, this very same matchup, in that game less than a week ago, and 5+ Ks, 4 out of his last 5 starts coming during the month of September. So I just think that both of these guys are, again, exceeding the trend and living in the vicinity of where you want them to be, to where I think it's a smart investment to go over, even if you just want to sprinkle it. I'm not saying put a, car payment on it, but if you want to invest in these guys to whatever degree you trust in strikeout props, I like these two spots.
So it's interesting. The late game here, of course, Atlanta looks like a team that had to play a doubleheader, get on a plane, have it be delayed, not get in until 3 o'clock in the morning, and then go out and play again. Yeah. They look like that team. But I can argue I think they have the right guy on the mound if they're going to get back into this thing in Max Fried. Musgrove has been great his last 3 starts, but I think we could all agree, okay, we've seen the other side of Musgrove as well. I mean, there's no reason to bet the Braves here tonight, right? Or is there?
No, I wouldn't bet the Braves. I mean, I realize obviously they're fighting for their season. That being said, I think yesterday was a good indication that the Padres are just the better team and exponentially better. Personally, I invested in them on the run line at a nice plus number, plus 175. And, I was on that yesterday as well. Now, granted, you had a worse pitching matchup yesterday to the Atlanta side. This side is a little bit more even this time around, like you said, with Max Fried. But I just think Fried has been very up and down throughout the year. Yeah, the final end of the regular season numbers look good, but he has been very, very up and down, very, very inconsistent, wasn't particularly good when he faced the Padres the one time that he did see them back in mid-May. Musgrove on the other side, honestly, I think you're discrediting him a little bit. We remember the first, month and a half of the regular season, and he was awful and didn't even look like he belonged in the major leagues. I fully get it. But if you dive into his numbers right now, again, all-star, he has limited opponents to 2 runs or fewer in 10 of his 12 starts since the beginning of May. He allows very few long balls, which is the way this Atlanta team is going to try to beat you. If he keeps that ball in the yard, there's just a very good proven case history over the course of 2/3 of the season that he is going to keep you in check. So if the Padres can score, and runs were hard to come by yesterday, it was a 4-0 game, but if the Padres can score, I think this is San Diego's series to lose.
2 runs, I believe, on 12 hits in his last 18 and a third innings, 23 strikeouts, but here's the number, 1 walk. He does not shoot himself in the foot, and that could be problematic for an Atlanta team that has a trouble scoring there. So, Adam, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the games, my man. We'll be back after this.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongues, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields. He's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week, I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase. I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this first Wednesday of October. That's right. We've got postseason baseball going on here as the Baltimore Orioles are now down to their final 3 outs as the Kansas City Royals looking to pull off the second upset of the day following the Detroit Tigers, who ended the Houston Astros season here. We'll keep you posted on what's happening there, but let us not forget the President's Cup was a lot of fun last week. We enjoyed that. It was a little bit more entertaining than some people thought, and Brady Cannon, no doubt, I think was pretty excited to see that, hey, a lot was still up for grabs on a Sunday, which was more than we kind of thought was going to happen with how such a big favorite Team USA was, but they prevailed in the singles. They got it done. And now we go back to stroke play and the Sanderson Farms Championship here. What do we know about this tournament here, and what does this kick off for us on the PGA Tour, man?
Well, it is the first of the final 7 events of the FedEx Cup Fall. So we've got 7 more events between now and Thanksgiving. Guys trying to get into the top 125 in the FedEx Fall points, and that will keep them around. That'll keep their job for 2025. So it means a lot to a lot of people. The big names, the Scotty Schefflers, just about everybody we saw in the President's Cup last week, they're probably not going to show their face a whole lot here during this FedEx Cup Fall. This here at the Sanderson Farms, Joe, arguably or could be a contender, certainly, for worst field of the entire year, unfortunately. That doesn't mean we can't bet on it, but there's only one guy in this field that ranks in the top 50 in the world, and that's Nick Dunlap. A lot of guys are betting on Nick Dunlap. At BetMGM, he's number 1 in ticket count, he's number 1 in handle, and he's their biggest liability. Another guy that they're betting is a guy that's from Mississippi and also played golf at University of Alabama like Dunlap did, and that's Davis Riley. We've seen a lot of SEC South guys win here, guys that are used to playing on Bermuda grass and familiar with this part of the country. Sam Burns, an LSU Tiger, won here in 2021. What we've also seen is it tends to cater to the bigger hitters. The last handful of guys that have won here have been bombers, and they can cut a lot of corners on these dog legs. They can play the bomb and gouge Bryson DeChambeau style of golf that is probably not all of our favorites, but these guys know how to attack a golf course when it's there for the taking. And that's really what the formula has been here at the Country Club of Jackson the last few years. Hit it as far as you can and get red hot with the putter, and you might find yourself in the winner's circle on Sunday.
So then in that case, it's some of the longer hitters, right? Is it a birdie fest here? Guys that can get up and down. And I mean, it really is. It could be all over the board here. They all appear to be motivated, but how do you narrow the field down here?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at strokes gained off the tee. I looked at driving distance. I looked at iron play. I looked at putting. I looked at par 4 scoring. And, I kept it pretty simple. It is one of the easier golf courses on the PGA Tour, and yeah, I don't know if I would quite label it a birdie fest, but the average winning score here over the past 10 editions, it's 10 years, it's 2014 when they started playing at this golf course in Jackson, Mississippi. The average winning score has been 19 under par. And that's exactly what the proposition number is at the Westgate Superbook here in town, under or over 18.5. I kind of think it'll be under or more under par, if you will. I mean, it seems like these guys just get better year after year. And I mean, it doesn't seem like we see that many tournaments that are less than 19 under par for your winner. I wouldn't be surprised if we got to 20. The weather looks fine. The wind doesn't appear to be a big factor. And I just took 4 stabs here, Joe. Typically I dumb down the card a little bit when I'm in football season, trying to juggle both handicaps at the same time. And I went with 4 guys this week. I started with Patrick Fishburne, a young man, a rookie on tour out of BYU. Got him at 30-1. Started off the year horribly, missed 7 out of 8 cuts, but he has been red hot as of late, and he fits the formula. He hits it really long, and he's a great putter. And then I went to 35-1 with Jonathan Vegas, who just won a couple of months ago in Minnesota, and he, for his entire career, has been an awful putter, but he is always absolutely one of the best off the tee. He hits it long and straight, and he's won golf tournaments before. So if he can find 4 days with a hot putter, he might be there at the top of the leaderboard as well. And then I went to Ben Griffin, who's really been knocking on the door. He was a runner-up at this tournament last year when Luke List won it, and he was also a runner-up a few months ago back in June at the Canadian Open. He's been very consistent, has a great all-around game. Number 2 in this field for strokes gained putting on Bermuda grass over the last 36 rounds is Ben Griffin. And then I took a flyer on a guy that's kind of like a poor man's Johnny Vegas, Kevin Yu. He bombs the ball and he can't putt a lick. But if he gets that putter hot for 4 days, he could very well be there. And we've seen him get hot for a few days with the putter. He's done well at a handful of tournaments this year already. And against a field where, there's a lot of nobodies walking around, you never know who it is that'll pop up. So Kevin Yu, I got at triple digits at 120-1. Those are the 4-pack this week for the Sanderson Farms.
Yeah, it really does feel with not a lot of hazards. It feels like the one who gets, hottest with the putter from 15 feet is going to win.
Yeah, that's exactly
it
right.
doesn't feel like nobody's going to really get, there's no hazards or water. Even if you miss the drives and you're long enough, you're still putting for birdie here. But you have an interesting head-to-head in this one.
Yeah, and I'll get to that. I just, for the listeners and the viewers out there that are wondering, why would you bet on these guys like Johnny Vegas and Kevin Yu that drive it really well but can't putt? Because putting can change on a dime. You play golf, Joe. Ooh. You can get hot for 5 or 6 holes with your putter, and then all of a sudden you're cold as ice, the next 9 holes. Yep. The putting you can take a really good putter who can have an awful week, and you can take an awful putter who can have a red hot week. So putting typically gets hot and cold. The rest of your game, the form typically stays pretty consistent, but you just never know about the putter. The head-to-head matchup you mentioned, Nick Dunlap was on my radar early this week, and I know the Alabama connection, plays well in the South. He bombs it off the tee. He's 34th on the PGA Tour in driving distance. And then I started looking around. I'm like going, geez, everybody likes Dunlap week, and that's a red flag for me. I saw how the liability at BetMGM, the ticket count, the handle, the entire ball game, everybody's on Nick Dunlap, and I said, well, I'm going to go the other way. So I bet an old scrappy veteran, went to Stanford, an Indiana kid who also bangs the ball off the tee, and that's Patrick Rodgers. You know, you get these watered down fields. Rodgers is always a guy that's one of the better players in the field, still searching for that first PGA Tour win. But he's been around a long time and has been a solid player for a long time. So I took him at a decent underdog price, minus 105, in a full tournament head-to-head matchup over Dunlap, the very popular selection of Dunlap.
Yeah, it should be an interesting one. Wouldn't shock me if it's a big number there in this one, which is better than having to navigate to, I bet, 3-1 on Scotty Scheffler to win pre-tournament.
Right.
I'll take this any day here. The NFL here, I was going to say at some point, Brady, doesn't it have to turn around like the favorites are going to win, but apparently not on your card this week.
Yeah, I took 3 dogs right off the bat. And you know a good friend, a mutual friend that's been in this business for 100 years, and that's Dr. Bob Stoll, Dr. Bob Sports. It's an old situation that he gave me many years ago that always applies to week 4. And that's when you have 1 in 3 teams off of a loss taking on a team that is off of a win. And that line gets kind of out of whack because the perception on the 1 in 3 team is bad. The team off of a win is good. The Panthers, the Browns, and the Cardinals apply to that situation.
That is absolutely gross, and I love it at the same time, Brady. That is just, look at
Hold
those
your
teams.
nose,
That
my
is,
friend.
oh, that is disgusting, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Brady, we appreciate it. Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongues, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, oh, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields, he's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those two ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week, I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase, I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
And welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri, and they did it again. Another underdog in postseason for Major League Baseball will advance as the Kansas City Royals have just closed it out against the weak Baltimore Orioles 2-1. And they sweep this best-of-3 series. They will head to the Bronx to take on the Yankees as we welcome in our good friend Scotty Wetzel taking over at the top of the hour for some in-game live. And, of course, still 2 games remain here in the wild card round with the Mets and Milwaukee just underway, and then the Braves and the Padres coming up. But, Scotty, we saw it earlier. Detroit ended not just the Houston season, but the end of an era there in Houston. And we just watched Kansas City. 1 run in 18 innings at home, the Baltimore Orioles scored. Quite honestly, they don't deserve to advance. They don't really deserve to be playing anymore at this point. Unbelievable series by both underdogs. Can they keep it rolling, Scotty's the big question.
You know, I tell you, Joe, give me the hot team over the better team. We've seen that. Give me the team that's on fire, even though on paper, theoretically, they might not be as good as the other team. I don't like this playoff format as it's set up, Joe, and I'll give you, numbers to reemphasize that. There have been 11 so far. This best of 3 started in 2022. We had 2 to start, then they added a 3rd team, so we've had 11 so far. You know how many times we've gone to a game 3 out of 11 series? 1 time. Once.
Wow.
It's amazing. And we got 2 more sweeps with Detroit. So it's home teams, road teams. I don't know what it is. I don't know if these teams are getting so demoralized after you lose the first game. But, yeah, only 1 time have we gone to a 3rd game. And we're not getting any runs. I mean, as pathetic as Baltimore has been, and obviously in this series, Joe, think about this. If you're Kansas City, you've scored 18 runs in your last 10 games. 7, keep in mind, in 1 game. So, really, it's been 11 runs in 9 games, and yet you're 5-5, and you're moving on after scoring 3 runs in 2 games. It's just that this Royals team, it's amazing. The lack of hitting, nothing but unders in this postseason. 5-1 under. Only the Mets game is the only one to go over so far in the 6 games that we've completed. So nobody's hitting. But back to Baltimore, your statement. Yeah, if you're the Orioles, that's you were there last year. You were supposed to rebound. You were supposed to use that as experience and this, that, and 1 run against Kansas City. Wow.
It's unbelievable. So now the Yankees await the Royals, the Guardians await the Tigers. And if this follows suit, then the Mets are winning. The hot team, right? The Mets, the underdog, they're winning tonight. The only favorite I see here is the Padres, really, at which point that probably means Atlanta is going to win and we're going to get a game 3, Scotty. What do you think? The Mets are just underway now. Did you have a side in that one?
I just went with the Mets. I was telling Dave, we were doing a show last night. I said, you watch, at least 3 out of the 4 teams that won the first game will win. Now, I didn't know about this 8-1 heading into that number until later on. But I said, I don't remember that many best of 3s, and lo and behold, there hasn't. So I like the Mets because they won last night. I think they're really the better team, but ultimately they're certainly the hotter team, when it comes to Milwaukee. So, and as far as, you can still get that. They're just underway, as you mentioned. I thought that would be a little bit more underway than what it is right now. But I like the Padres. I think Atlanta's shot. They had no chance last night, right? Playing a doubleheader Monday, flying all the way across the country, playing an early game. But what Major League Baseball did to the Braves, that was not right. But I just don't think that, so many injuries. You get the Padres that basically pick them at home. Joe Musgrove, Max Fried. I mean, that's a toss-up. You figure the Padres should be a little bit bigger favorite than that, considering, they're at home and everything. But so give me the Padres minus the 120, Joe. I think they finish it up as well.
I do think, I think Atlanta was up against it yesterday. They looked like a team that had to play a doubleheader, hop on a plane overnight to get in and fall out of the plane and then go play another game. They were 15 strikeouts. I think they whiffed last night. Taking on Musgrove, who's not been easy here over the last month. But if I'm Atlanta, I got the right guy on the mound, Fried here. Does he go over his strikeout prop, or how are you looking at him?
It's weird. We had a great play last night on the strikeout with Michael King. They were giving us a ridiculously low number, 5.5, and we were talking in our show about how you got to go to 6 or 7 or even 8. We joked, and right, he ended up with 12. Kind of the same thing with Max Fried, Joe. I mean, that bullpen, for the Braves, they used 9 pitchers on Monday. They used a gazillion last night because they started, for whatever reason, a rookie with 1 year experience. So I got to believe Max Fried is going to get every opportunity in the world to stay out there. I know they're facing elimination. You can't screw around too much, but his strikeout total is 4.5 on FanDuel. 4.5, Joe. He's had 5 strikeouts or more in 10 of his last 12 games. And a lot of those were like 6, 7, 8s. You know, I mean, I don't know where they came up with 4.5, unless they just think these managers are going to be pulling these guys quicker because it's a postseason, as we have seen. But I don't think it's going to happen with Fried. Man, I love that. I'm going to do the same thing I did last night. Bump it up, get it, adjusted odds, go to 6, go to 7, heck, even 8. You know, you get yourself a monster number. I love the over 4.5. I think that's, out of all the bets tonight, I think that's the best one on the board.
You like going up and over. He's got to be good for them here tonight. I see a total bases prop too for you here. And I like this play also here. Tell us about Profar.
Yeah, I got to go with Jurickson Profar. 2 bases. You know, he's one of their better hitters. Switch hitter. Hits much better against lefties than he does against righties, as Fried is. In fact, he hits 300 against lefties. And really, all of his power comes from the left side. He's got 8 homers and 150 at-bats. You know, he batted over 400 times from the right side, and he only has 16. So he has the power from the left side. He's due. He's been, playing well. So give me Profar to get at least a double. Hopefully, maybe a double, but at worst, 2 singles. So give me Profar.
All right, Profar. All right, don't go anywhere, Scott. I want to get before we let you go here. I want to know who is your exact World Series matchup here, because it's getting good. Is it going to be chalky? Is there going to be a dog in there? I can't wait to hear who you like. And for all the marbles here, we'll do that when Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Let's move to the quarterback position where Jaden Daniels is priced at 8,200. There's 3 quarterbacks above him, and everyone can pretty much guess who they are. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe the third one might fall off the tip of people's tongue, but it's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the top.
These guys control all the scoring in their offense, so it makes a lot of sense to look at them and say, okay, well, this is prime matchup, marquee matchup. You know, Josh Allen, especially, you can run him by himself because you just don't know where the football's going. And that's a good thing for Josh Allen. I think you've seen him play much better when he's just in control of the offense and not thinking about, I need to get the football to this person. And it seems like a different version of Josh Allen. And that MVP number has moved considerably in his favor. I want to keep pivoting down, though. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are going to come back to this matchup. When you have matchups, the total is above 50. That's where you want to be investing in your quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, both have rushing equity, both have touchdown equity, both control all the scoring in their offense. So rather than go up to the Lamars and Josh Allens of the world, I think it's probably a smarter pivot to look downward to the Daniels, to the Murrays, and see if you can get those guys in and save yourself $1,000 and potentially spend that and spread that around the rest of your lineup. I think that's a better practice. And if you want to go even further, Justin Fields. He's a top 10 quarterback this week on Fantasy Pros for the rankings and the expert consensus ranks. At 6,800, you can pair him with Pickens, or you could put it with Najee Harris, either one of those 2 ways. And I think you're in a really good spot potentially. So that's another good pivot point where this week I think you can fade the top of the quarterback position in favor of some of those bigger guys at running back and wide receiver. I'd rather have Chase, I'd rather have Barkley, and then make do with Daniels or Fields. I think that's a much better path to victory this week.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network as we wrap up this edition, getting ready for some more postseason baseball, and they are off and running in Milwaukee as the Mets scored first in the top of the first inning there. They pushed across 1 run, did leave a couple of runners on base, and boy, the The Brewers didn't waste any time. Churro hits a leadoff home run. Now they've got another runner on. And, boy, that over is looking pretty tasty here in this game. 7.5 is what the total was pregame. We've seen nothing but unders in pretty much all the other games over the last couple of days, except this series, in which we seem to be getting a lot of home runs, a lot of hits, a lot of runs. I do think we're going to get a lot more of that as this game continues. But 1-1, bottom of the first, Brewers up and threatening once again with Manaea on the mound. We just watched the Royals advance to take on the New York Yankees. The Yankees await the Kansas City Royals, who did it again, just like Detroit did earlier in the day against the Houston Astros. We've got all of these lower seeds here, or higher seeded teams that are just, they're gone. Houston Astros, Baltimore Orioles, great seasons, gone. Getting knocked out by the Tigers, who a month ago weren't even close to being in the postseason, and the Royals, who have been battling all year long, doing it their way. Well, the Tigers now will advance to take on the Cleveland Guardians in the American League Divisional Series. And, of course, the Kansas City Royals heading to the Bronx to take on the Yankees. But, again, we have seen now the last 3 years, we have seen these wild card rounds, these games, these series. We're talking about 9 total wild card games heading into this year, and all 9 watched the team who won the first game eventually go on to win the series. So 9-0 for the team who won game 1. That's either going to be terrible news for Milwaukee unless they can break that streak, and it's also going to be terrible news for Atlanta tonight as they try to save their season. Musgrove going for the Padres, Max Fried going for Atlanta. But this short 3-game series, you know, Scotty Wetzel was just telling us here, of the 9 previous, only 1 game of these 9 best-of-3 wildcard series over the last couple of years has actually made it to a 3rd game. Everybody else was a sweep. And right now we got it with Detroit, swept the Astros, the Royals, swept the Baltimore Orioles, and now the Mets are going to try to do the same, and so will the Padres here. So it's going to make for a very interesting conversation where, congratulations, you won 90-some-odd games in the regular season. Great. What good does that do it when the Tigers, who played their best baseball pretty much from July on, and Kansas City, who's been steady Eddie the entire way, who wasn't flashy in any way, shape, or form, solid pitching, good defense, and they have one superstar in that lineup there with Bobby Witt Jr., and he played like a superstar when it mattered the most. And in the meantime, you look at the old guard in Houston, couldn't get it done against Detroit, and yet the Orioles, for all that fanfare and all of these young players and all of this stuff, couldn't get it done. They got an ace of their staff that started yesterday through, gave up 1 run on 8 innings, pitched his heart out there, Corbin Burns, the right guy for the right moment, and the lineup could not scratch a run to help support him, and that is why now the Baltimore Orioles have lost 10 straight postseason games. Yikes. The Brewers have already lost 10 straight after that attempt last night at the Mets. They are trying to avoid losing 11 straight here. They did get out of the first inning there, so it is 1-1 right now in that game, but it should be an awful lot of fun, too. 8:30 rather, I believe. We're going to get the Padres game on. Scotty Wetzel, Dave Sharapan, those guys coming up in-game live. They will have all the coverage of this Mets-Brewers game, as well as the Braves and the Padres. Take a look at some of those future prices now. Is it worth taking a stab at either Detroit or Kansas City to actually win the American League pennant? Can either of them get past the Yankees or the Guardians? We'll have to wait and see. Enjoy the games here tonight. Game Time Decisions will be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.